Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to a Soulmate Snapshot. So, I thought today might be an active and intentional day off, but I think I got a couple of questions last night that made me feel like I at least want to jump in and do a Soulmate Snapshot on this one. And this was I'm really feeling the effects of this Mercury retrograde in one way or another. Some people are having misunderstandings. Some people are looking at yesterday's advice and looking at just kind of the big picture and say, I'm the one who wants to reach out now. Give me some guidance on that. So that's what we're going to look at. It's the environment around communication and whether or not you should consider reaching out to this person if you are so inclined. So I get that some of you are not inclined to reach out to this person. You may want to take some of the energies into account as well, but it's a general reading. It won't resonate with everybody. Just as always, it's for this collective. And so if it's you, though, maybe think about subscribing. Maybe think about looking at some of the other messages, particularly in reference to yesterday's messages and some of the ones that came in the extended, because we got a little bit deeper with the advice once we got into the extended. And it really didn't tell you whether you should be interacting with this person. And so that was one of the things that people came back were like, well, should I or shouldn't I? And these are not the same people that said, I'm walking away. So we're going to look into that. Let's look at what this sudden kind of push is between you right now. Because it's like this is people that woke up today or woke up, during the course of, everyone's in these different time zones, but woke up like, I have to reach out. Why is that? So we got, fear. Knight of Swords. It's a fear of allowing a moment to get away. There's something about wanting to make something happen when the time is right, or before a moment gets too old, before something becomes regrettable. 10 of Cups, this is being afraid that your person is somehow shifting away or moving away or going to forget or think that you forgot. But it is very much, there's a feeling between you and your person of fear and kind of clenching on a little bit. That's just in the energy. So you might not be feeling that directly. You may be kind of responding to that energy that's just kind of out there. It's even if you've moved a little bit farther past that in your lessons and you're saying, no, I get it. This person's going to have me to deal with for some time to come. You may still be feeling a little bit of an urgency around the situation, and it's going to be partially because of this energy. So you've got 8 of Earth, struggling around the mastery of the situation, struggling in places that maybe you don't typically struggle. Let me just say that. It's a desire in several people to reach out that seems like it has arisen in the last few hours or overnight for many of you. In some cases, fueled by a dream that has made you say, I didn't think I was going to reach out. I didn't think I was the person that reaches out during this Mercury retrograde, but here we are, and I'm struggling with how I want to word this. Wait a minute. Should I even be wording this? It's a tough decision to make. And with the 2 of Wind in the reverse, I'm pretty sure we saw that yesterday. It's tough to decide. There is a realization that this is a scary decision to make. So not necessarily a realization of which way you're supposed to take it. You know that it comes from, okay, so it's coming from fear, but you may not quite know how to register that. So it's got this Sister of Earth in the reverse. It's something that this directly means something that hasn't been learned, like a lesson that hasn't been learned. But what it feels like is something that hasn't been stated, something that hasn't fallen into the right place in your psyche yet. There's something that still needs to kind of be resolved in there. So you might even have the learning, but it hasn't quite put it in a place to be able to be used just yet. We have the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse, which, okay, so here's the kind of energy that I was almost expecting to find here right off the bat. So this is the energy of the universe holding you in a place to say, I'm going to need you to pay attention to this. You are not being tested that whether or not you need to reach out to this person, so much as you are being encouraged to feel something very specific. And that feeling gives you a memory of that soul connection, that soul recognition that moves you. And so there's fear associated with it, but there's also a lot of warmth. There's a lot of that feeling of needing to be able to reach into a historical place and not being able to do so. So this has become like a mirage. But there's an inaccessibility about this sort of mirage. And there's this feeling somewhere in here that that like the timing has to be now. It's got that sort of feeling to it. So if you're getting that, that is in the air. It is not necessarily coming from something new that happened. That's what's in the air right now. So if you woke up with this, give it a little bit, do some nice breathing. Let's get an idea of kind of what is driving this, though, before we say yes or no, because I think we're going to ask for your advice, your focus when we get over here. And it may be, okay, it's not going to do you any harm or whatever, but we aren't there yet. Let's understand a little bit more about what's driving this, what you need to know about it. Okay, so there's the Hierophant is here, and this is about recognition of, it's recognition of a need to reach a certain point emotionally. Like, it's not necessarily that you have reached it, it's recognition of where you are on the path. So it's seeing how far you've come, seeing how far you have to go. And you guys, if you watch this channel often, you'll notice that the Hierophant is one of my most flexible cards, and yet almost never means that. Knight of Cups in the reverse is the first thing telling me that you might not want to actually reach out to this person. But it also is telling me that there's something about this that is a difficult communication, or more that it is difficult to have communication, and yet crazy, extreme desire to do it. And communication may not go especially well. That feels a little bit like not necessarily anyone's fault. That feels like that Mercury retrograde energy saying, hey, you know what? Maybe communication is not in your best interest right now, but not because of anything that anybody's really going to do wrong. It's all going to be in the interpretation. I get a little bit of that. We've got the Eight of Water here saying stop and really think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you hope to get out of it. And the Six of Wands saying, okay, we're already getting into advice. If you reach out to this person, or if you take a message, if you take communication from this person, it's going to put you into a little bit of an emotional tailspin. That's not necessarily something that you can't come out of. Just warning you that this is not going to be an easy place for you to be. And we saw this in yesterday's energy. You're going to know kind of what that balance ought to look and feel like based on the type of energy that has been surrounding you. And I think that's part of what's causing all of this flustered sort of energy here, is that it's very much in contrast with understanding what an unflustered look is going to be, or what it would be. So you have a little bit of perspective over the last couple of days, but waking up and feeling like this, or having this build throughout the day, or suddenly hit you, it's pretty stark. I definitely feel like it's pretty stark. This is something that pushes you away from something good that you're doing. So if you've got, if you're trying to, and I'm just going to make that example that keeps coming up for us. If you're trying to quit smoking, like, this is the sort of energy that puts you back into a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to have a relapse because this is insane. And it gives you an excuse to have a relapse in some area, the way that this energy just feels, the way it feels. Okay. It also gives you a feel for, we've been witnessing a lot of unstable masculine energy that that makes you kind of want to jump in and control something, or makes your person kind of want to jump in and control something. With this Emperor card here, what I see is a tendency to move back toward that control, or at least to become very aware of, or not necessarily toward that control, toward that mastery, toward that um, masculine energy that's a little bit more balanced. And this is reminds me a little bit of what we saw in yesterday's extended, where you had some idea as you're watching things unfold for yourself, what drives you to be the way that you are feeling, what drives you to feel that way. And also you get to watch yourself respond to it, almost like you're outside of yourself and just kind of observing it. This Emperor is it is indicative of the balance that you're able to identify because of not necessarily feeling balance right now. That perspective that I'm expecting like the Hanged Man to come in the upright with this, the way this feels. You have the Four of Fire. This is, again, energy that's probably going to send you into a little bit of a tailspin, throw you off your game if you interact with this person. You are in a very positive place right now, but also a kind of a fragile place. There's definitely a sense that you could experience a setback if you interact with this person. Let's see, we got the Brother of Wind here. Brother of Wind is, and let me pick up these other cards. Sorry, baby. Stepped on my puppy's little hand, her little paw a little bit. Okay, so all of these cards came in face down. We did have a few that came in face up though. And so we've got the Brother of Wind, which is, what this has given me is, it's giving me a strong sense of fear, but not just your fear. It is your ability to feel fear in someone else, your ability to respond to someone else's fear and anxiety maybe. That's a really interesting one, because it makes it so if they reach out to you, it may make it very challenging for you to be able to respond to them in kind. But responding to them in kind may not be the right thing to do. We also have the Five of Fire. So with this one, we had the Five of Fire come out. I think it was the Five of Wands in yesterday's reading. And I can't remember if it was the YouTube reading or the extended. But what it really reminded me of is a potential to put things on a right track. So I talked about there being, you know, all these different spotlights that you could potentially, they're really strong spotlights and they're all pointed in kind of different directions, but you could potentially get them all to point the same way. And so although it would be a struggle to do it, it would be very much worthwhile. I still get that sense in this energy, but I get the sense that it may not be completely worth the setback that you experience, the emotional setback that you experience in doing it. With the Brother of Earth, though, I also feel like you're ultimately moving toward healing and a new perspective as you do this. This is an interesting and kind of difficult energy to be in, because it feels like if this person reaches out to you, you're getting put in a difficult place, and you're already having a hard time trying to figure out not just if you should respond. Maybe you've got that piece figured out, but how. If you decide that you should, that becomes a little bit more challenging. I think what really shows up for me, though, is this Two of Fire. It's, you know how we have seen sometimes that your person has this ability to kind of look at something that was true to them once upon a time. It was a value that was true to them once upon a time, and they will sometimes kind of hide behind it like it is an excuse to keep you at arm's length. And this is almost like, it's very strange. It's almost like you have learned or adopted this tendency from them somehow to do this. but it's keeping you from something that I don't know that you feel that strongly about. Like it's just there. It's not necessarily a showstopper or a big, it's not keeping you from this person, but in the energy. And that's just really interesting. I can't wait till we get to, well, we'll get to looking at the advice for you and whether you should reach out to them. At this point, though, it looks like there's this energy of misunderstanding around communication, but also such a shift in the energy that makes you kind of maybe feel like you have to evaluate reaching out. The one thing that I would say is there is a little bit more of a balanced feel in the energy between the two of you, as far as you may not have a long interaction if the two of you come back together at this time, but it does have the potential to be fairly positive in that it could be very balanced. And that's something that I think we've often seen missing in the past. So that is something that could help kind of give you a little something to begin to heal around if it does happen. So that works in favor of maybe having an interaction, but I see over here tendency toward misunderstanding kind of working against it. So let's get you some advice and maybe what you should be thinking about doing. What is the advice here? So we've got Ace of Coins, move very slowly. That's a feeling of slow movement. This is the Four of Wands. And this tells you to keep things steady and not focus on rocking the boat. It does not tell you not to rock the boat. It tells you to not focus on rocking the boat. So this isn't change for the sake of change. And if whatever you do, you want to move slowly and tread somewhat carefully. A little bit of that energy in there as well. Not in a dangerous, like minefield sort of tread carefully. Just tread carefully to make sure that you don't falter in a way that could create more harm than it does good. Also, think carefully about the implications of your actions with the Hermit card. But what I get from this more than anything else is really a need to make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. Not a new message, but we're seeing it again. Just making sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing, and you're prepared to deal with the repercussions of your actions. So if you're considering reaching out to this person and you have a very real and practical reason for doing so, it may be that it's gonna take some bouncing back, but you just have to be prepared for that, and you have to know it. Again, this has a lot to do with knowing yourself, knowing the situation, knowing what you're likely to do, what you're likely to need. We have the Mother of Water coming out in the reverse. It is likely to bring out in you a bit of a codependent response. If you've got it in you to give a codependent response, that is something that seems to want to show up for you at this time, which is probably a little bit frustrating, especially if you've done a lot to mitigate those codependent responses. Somebody's going to hit you right where it matters. That's kind of how this feels. Yep, lack of healing. It's going to show you where the healing hasn't yet occurred. So this is Four of Wind. It's like the Four of Swords, and it talks about healing, but with it being in the reverse and with it being in this position in the reading and the way that it feels, it's really about figuring out what you haven't yet healed. So interaction with this person, you want to be very careful with it because it is likely to trigger you in some ways, bring out some codependency, and give you a real setback, but it will also show you the edges of your healing. Now, there are other ways to find those edges, so don't feel like reaching out to this person is the only way that you would be able to make it happen. However, the catch is it may be easier for one or both of you to press send at this time. That feels like the Mercury retrograde talking. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think it's a change that happened between the two of you. I think it's energy that you're bathed in. And what did I just drop? Yeah, we've got the Sister of Wind. Sister of Wind is about being able, and the Sun. It's about being able to move quickly, to be able to make a decision quickly and to move into the unknown relatively quickly. Nine of fire in the reverse is about being able to let go and do that, because it's not necessarily having to guard yourself quite as much. So you're able to loosen up and let it happen a little bit. Makes it a little easier to hit send, but there's still going to be all the rest of this implication. So if your person hits send and communicates to you, it's because you make them happy. It's because they remember how you've made them happy, and this energy kind of lightened it up so that they could do it. But they're still going to experience that codependency. They're still going to see the edges of their own healing. So it doesn't matter who initiates this. That is still going to happen. Doesn't mean that it won't be a positive interaction like we were seeing down here. It even has stands to be a relatively even balanced interaction, but it still does have this tendency to set you back. So you have to take this take this into consideration while you're making difficult decisions that are already harder to kind of make in this energy. It's going to create some emotionally tumultuous experiences for you. You would have to decide if you're ready to take those on and if it's worth it for you. You've got the Four of Water here. It's probably gonna, it will likely trigger you a little bit harder than you think. So even if you have reached out to them before and you've had your varying levels of response to that, you may see some greater levels of response to it in this energy. Those are going to be associated with that ancient pain that is either came with you into this lifetime or was developed early for you in this lifetime and has helped to shape your values, or came in the form of values that were given to you. This is something that is likely to throw you for a loop. So we definitely saw that here. It's going to knock you off your game to have communication with this person, and probably a little bit more than usual, little more than you realize. It's going to make you realize, just like we saw that Four of air there, and that was showing you kind of the edges of your healing. Here we see you're going to realize that you're not out of the woods yet. So this could knock you down a peg if you think that your healing is going fairly well. And maybe it is going fairly well, but this will make you realize, I still have such a long way to go, which again, not a bad thing, not necessarily bad for you to be aware of that and to observe it like we even see over here, but it is frustrating sometimes when you think you've made it farther. So when you think about whether to reach out to this person, think about these implications that we talked about here. It is likely to bring out the codependency piece. It is likely to show you the edges of your healing, and to create a bit of a setback for you. So if that's worthwhile to you, realize that it might be a little bit more than usual. Your response might be a little bit more intensive than usual. And you are being kept in this energy to help you work through this type of energy. If you happen to reach out to this person or they reach out to you, you may be brought back as this part of this cycle may be about being able to manage this energy without creating more difficulty for yourself. So you may again find yourself in this portion of the cycle with the opportunity then to reach out or to say, I'm going to hold off this time, you know. So be aware of that. For those of you who are trying to figure out why all of a sudden it feels so intense, the answer is really over here. It's in the way the energy is coming across today. It's kind of messing with you. This too shall pass. If you're concerned about, am I still going to feel this way tomorrow and I didn't yesterday, this may be gone by tomorrow. So you won't feel that need to reach out quite as heavily tomorrow as you may today. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. It's a soulmate snapshot, so we're not going to do an extended on the end of it, but I just felt like let's go ahead and jump into this since I got a couple of fairly frenzied questions about it and when I first got on this morning. So I am glad that you were here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you again in tomorrow's reading.